Welcome back to the $2 Film Club. Today we are taking a little bit of a sidestep from our regularly scheduled stuff. We're still talking about like an upcoming release, but it's kind of a bit of an odd one out, I would say. I remember back when this movie came out, I saw the trailer for it, and I remember thinking to myself, "That looks dumb," and I never thought about it again. And then lo and behold, in the year of 2025, we are getting a sequel to this movie. Um,
2026.
sorry, 2026. You're right; it hasn't come out yet. Yeah,
Weird.
sorry, we're recording this the day before the new year. Um, but anyway, so Greenland, 2020 film, I believe. If anyone remembers that amazing year. Um, the film stars Gerard Butler, who also apparently produced the film.
Did he really? Wait, what?
We'll talk about that, but so yeah, it co-stars Marina Baccarin. I hope I'm saying that name right. You might recognize her from the Deadpool films. I personally know her from Firefly and Serenity.
Bro, you can't
And I
forget
think I've seen.
Gotham too.
I've never seen that, so
Of course you haven't, bro. Of course, it just pisses me off because she was only really in the mid seasons,
oh,
and then once she left, the show really started getting good, which I found ironic because she was the best part of the earlier seasons.
that's
But
funny.
I do remember like her from Firefly. My dad got me into that when I was younger.
Dope. But anyways, as I was saying before, Gerard Butler was a producer on this. And interestingly enough, I don't know a lot about the development of this movie, but I read something about it. So apparently, Chris Evans was originally signed on to star, as well as Neil Blomkamp directing. And eventually, Blomkamp left the project, and then eventually, the I don't know how to say this dude's name. The dude who directed the Angel Has Fallen movie that Gerard Butler was also in, he came and became the director, and then Gerard Butler joined the cast later, like soon after.
I'm reading too, like I don't remember what the original release date was, but
I
it
think,
was one of the films that got like pushed back 15 times due to
yeah, COVID-19.
yeah, the video chat.
It was scheduled to theatrically release on June 12th, 2020, but was delayed to July 30th and then August 14th due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Its
And
domestic release was
then
again delayed on July 24th, moving to September 25th. The film's release schedule include. Okay, yeah, that's not important. So yeah, it was.
it went straight to like PVOD essentially.
Yeah, because of
December
that.
18th of the same year, which
Yeah.
honestly, but it also went to HBO and Amazon, meaning like you could rent it, but HBO you could stream it there for quote unquote free. I'm like I can't remember because I remember seeing this film come out at the time, and like this kind of like checks off all of the criteria for like my own interest. It's got a pretty solid cast. Like I like Gerard Butler, but I don't think he's the best in the world. And it's
Yeah.
got the world ending, you know, like how else could you make it for a more fun film? But I feel like I couldn't have been more wrong at the end of the day with this. But yeah, I don't know why it took me so long. This is the first time I've actually seen the film.
Yeah, no, this is the first time that I've seen this movie too. Like I said, I saw the trailer back in 2020, and it looked like, it didn't look like my cup of tea. I'm not as big of like a disaster person, but like I've seen some good disaster ones, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's the thing that I gravitate towards. But I just remember watching the trailer, I was like, oh, this looks kind of like a cheapy disastery gimmick movie, and I was not really interested.
Dude, that that's what I think at least this film is like different from is so me and you had like a little bit of a conversation about this is like what I would consider a disaster film. And I'd argue that I think that Greenland isn't a disaster film. And I can't tell you how disappointed I was finding out watching the film that the title was actually just Greenland and it wasn't anything special because this whole time I thought Greenland was like a special location name for like where the bunkers were and not actually Greenland. But neither here or there. I don't know. I was kind of left disappointed with this film. Like I enjoyed it for what it was, but I think it leaned too heavily into a lot of the emotional stakes that weren't really there and forgot about like the disasters or the disaster of it all.
No, yeah, I would agree with that. Like it, this is a perfectly decent viewing experience. Like it wasn't anything groundbreaking, and kind of by the end of it, I was pretty ready for it to be over. But I think the main thing with the story is that sometimes it does and doesn't prioritize like the more emotional aspects. Like it feels like the movie is trying too hard to make you feel sorry for the characters, in a way that doesn't necessarily directly tie back to like the main conflict of the movie. Um, because yeah, I mean, come to think about it, like I can only think of like a handful um of times during the movie that I remember the comet and disastrous stuff actually having any real driving force for the plot of the movie. Like a lot of it more revolves around the like the aircraft stuff.
Well, the
Um
first half is like them just reconnecting and finding each other. That's essentially what, like the first half is. You almost kind of forget the whole natural disasters going on because you got Gerard Butler going somewhere. The mother just had the kid get abducted and kicked out of the car. So by the time they get back together, you get back caught up at I think it was her father's place in Tennessee or whatever, and that's when it starts to kick back into a disaster film, but you're at the end of what the disaster is supposed to be. So then it just kicks into overdrive where, we have to get to this location, aka the airplane, in this certain amount of time, which honestly, the stakes don't really feel there in terms of how much time they have from the start of the film, knowing what's going to happen to when it eventually happens. And I think that's like a big distortion for me because, like, I don't know, I think a good disaster film just has you always on the edge of your seat, never knowing what's truly going to happen. If that's why, like, you know what? For as many people that shit on the Dwayne Johnson San Andreas film, I think it's an entertaining fucking movie because you know what? It is absolutely absurd to see Dwayne Johnson and his family in the film just like swimming around a flooded Los Angeles. They get into a boat only to just like fucking surf on a giant 50-foot tidal wave coming in to destroy the rest of the city. And by the way, the boat goes like through the water and like flips out and shoots itself out. It's absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense, but it's really fun and always you never know what's going to happen because the film just has this overly ridiculous plot that I think can work for the film, but can also not work in like the opposite issue for I think this type of film where I think it inherently takes itself a little too seriously that it forgets that I think these type of films need to have a little bit of fun somewhere.
yeah, no, I agree. I was just about to say I think it does take itself a little too seriously at times. Like it feels like it's trying really hard to stay, I guess, grounded in like what they think reality would be in this sort of scenario.
Which is funny because I think they set that up well with them getting kicked out of like the program with the son's diabetes, but then it kind of just totally gets ignored by the time you get to the end of the film because I don't know if I missed something, I missed some dialogue, an explanation or whatever, but it kind of just seems like there was no problem with them one getting to Greenland and two getting in the bunkers after having all those issues in the first act with the government. And it
Mm,
just seemed all pretty convenient that we need to keep this family alive. And you know what's funny? A film that made me think of this film made me think of was 2012. Have you ever seen that?
I have.
So I think it's like is very similar in terms of the plotting where a family's broken up, they have to come back together, that they use an airplane to travel to a different country to get to this big government facility that's going to protect them from this natural disaster that ends the world, right?
Yeah.
I just think that film does it so much better and in a far more entertaining way. And I actually think, even though they have the same stakes in the world ending, the stakes in terms of the family members and their dynamics, I find myself caring way more about. And I don't know why I'm using like that film as like context,
Yeah, like
but
the comparison.
it just feels super similar to me, and I don't know why I had that like feeling like coming out of this, but it I don't want to say like a rip off or anything, but like I don't know, it's weird. Like even the I like the way they shot the whole impact with it hitting like the little nuclear fallout center they were in Greenland. Like I like the way they shot that until they did like that cheesy ass flashback shit with the child. Um, but I'm pretty sure they almost did the same thing also in 2012, just in a way more chaotic Hollywood way where, you know what, they got in on time, but guys, guess what? The door malfunctioned at the last second and some water got in, you know? And I think this is like what this film kind of needed, to add stakes and tension a little bit, because I think the stakes and tension that they give to us outside of the world ending just are not good.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen 2012 in a while, so I don't know if I'm remembering everything correctly. I do kind of remember, like the stuff that you were talking about with like the water coming in and everything. I think it's interesting, like in comparison with that movie, that there's so many more moving parts and more characters, and yet it still manages to kind of make you care more about what's going on. Yeah, I sometimes I feel like a lot of these disaster movies can have like a similar through line with like the family characters. Because I mean, when you're in a disaster movie, you're probably going to be worried about like your family and everything for the most part. And so a lot of them focus on that. But I mean, this one, I don't hate the dynamic between the family. I just kind of felt like it wasn't as fleshed out as it probably should have been. Um, and there's little bits and pieces throughout, but I think my problem is that by the time we got to like the beginning of the third act, I want to say, or like leading into the climax where I don't remember his name, the character's name, John, sorry. When John and Allison finally sort of like move past the stuff that they were dealing with their marriage and their estrangement with each other, they had spent so much of the movie like apart that it kind of felt forced. And I don't think the movie uses, again, the disaster as a means of like motivating them and driving them to that like dramatic shift. um and it also doesn't help that we learn what the issue was in the first place, like right before it happens as well, and so that was a little bit like annoying and frustrating.
Yeah, it is kind of annoying because you take that like 15-minute break in between the second and third act as it transitions, where you're at the father's house, and there's like these really bad character moments and interactions to me that just really don't add anything, like the one between Gerard and his father-in-law in the barn that Marina Baccarin just like listens to. That, by the way, I thought it was hilarious that like 5 minutes after that conversation in the barn, she says to him, "I heard your conversation." Like, no shit, bro. He saw you. He literally stopped this conversation because you walked in. And so I feel like this film has very much of like that in the script, those type of moments.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it needs it just it feels like to me it's forcing itself a narrative because it can't find a narrative within the world ending.
yeah, no, I think, going back to what you were saying, it's just the movie taking itself too seriously, and I think they thought that they needed something going on as like a, underlying issue, and didn't really know what to do with it, and so they just threw in these like beat points in the movie without really like setting them up or doing the work to like get to those moments.
No, yeah, I agree. One thing I will say though is I do enjoy like the way they like kind of depicted the world's reaction to everything. Like I
Yeah.
thought it was actually a pretty impactful moment right off the rip when he gets the phone call and kind of like doesn't blow it off, but is like skeptical about it. But then once like everyone learns what's going on and all of the friends at his son's birthday party just kind of slowly realize and walk away, but then once they get in the car, everyone starts begging, and like other films have done that and have done it like kind of a cheesy way. But so I don't know what it was, but I think it was just filmed and written and just directed in a really well enough way that it kind of hit me a little bit to see like all these families being broken up and like not being able to give up their own life for their children. And like that's a very realistic outlook on that scenario that I personally could like see happening outside of like the military kicking out them because of their kid with diabetes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not disagreeing with you. I know that kind of sounded like it. I'm
Dude,
just trying
fucking
to like
agree with me.
gather my thoughts on what I was going to say next. I agree with what you're saying. I think like that stuff worked for me like really well for the most part. I think my problem with it is that the movie doesn't stop with that stuff. Like more than half of the movie is like this weird detour into like the humanity aspects of it that I don't think were as warranted. I'm not saying that, you know, it couldn't work. I just don't think the movie does as good of a job later with it. I think it's a good setup for like the stakes of this imminent world-ending disaster. But then because the movie doesn't pick up on like the actual disaster aspects of it, and we just end up focusing on like these kind of like smaller ish things going on, it kind of starts to lose steam on me, and I kind of stop caring about all of that stuff. But like, yeah, pretty much up until like the 30-minute mark when like the plane explodes and everything, all that stuff is really good. I just think there needed to be a better shift back towards the actual um concept, the main premise of what the movie was going to be about.
Yeah, I hate to go back to 2012, but like I was no
I mean,
because
it's not a bad movie. I
no,
like that movie.
I think it's actually quite enjoyable, and I think John
Yeah.
Cusack's just a great actor. But
No, yeah, I
on the
think that
other
movie's
side,
good.
I only mention it because I think it does a variation of this family dynamic in a much better way in terms of a married couple split up because of whatever it may be. In this film, they try to tell me he cheated on her, whether like that may be true or not. Like
Yeah, that's the most absurd part of this movie.
that's the most absurd part. Outside of them, like the conflict resolution to that is I cheated, you didn't. End of story. That's literally it. But outside of that, I think the way they set up the family in terms of the disaster happening is already fascinating, with the mother having a new boyfriend that the father already feels kind of invalid towards, because you already see that his children already have that fatherly relationship with that man that came after him. And so it adds like all these little character dynamics that this kind of film that I just don't think has, because by the time you get to the end of 2012, when that stepfather does eventually die, you actually care. And I think that's a really hard part for a film to do, is to get a audience member to care about a character that goes against our protagonist
Mm.
the entire time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about 2012. Like, I'm not saying it's a masterpiece or anything. I just think it's entertaining. But part of the reason why is because I think the characters, like at least the central characters, do have like that strong connection. That's forged throughout the runtime of the movie, And I think just John Cusack's character in that movie as the protagonist just has more to do in terms of like his character progression, because obviously the movie is about him sort of like finding his place again in that family dynamic. And I don't think this movie does a really good job of that, because it doesn't I don't think it sets up very well like what the issue is with their marriage and everything. And so if I'm being honest, I don't think the movie would be that much different if they weren't having that problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I absolutely
And
agree.
like to me it kind of feels like the reason why they get separated, or they're having like problems during the whole disaster stuff, I think should be more tethered to that central emotional issue of their problem with each other. And then that throughout the course of the movie gets solved, and then by the end, it's like, but it's I for me, I feel like it's hard to tether him having a unbelievable affair um to whatever disaster is going on. Like it doesn't. And I never got the feeling throughout that she didn't, you know, care about him, or she didn't want him to be involved with them or anything. Like it didn't add anything to what was going on, and that kind of made it feel useless.
Her dad said a really funny line too that like it wasn't meant to be funny. I just inherently thought it was hilarious. I think it was at the start of that barn scene, and he says, "She told me you decided to move back in again." I said, "Again? How many times has this like fucking happened? Has he cheated on her multiple times? Have they had multiple fights where he's just had to leave? Like what? I don't know what relationship they have, because the relationship other people are telling me is different than the one they
That
are telling me.
It's different from what we're seeing, because like all we see is
Yeah.
them kind of acting awkward with each other, which is fine. And I don't know. I didn't really get as good of a sense of how deep in the doghouse he was, and it also didn't help that we didn't really know what was causing the issue. And so at the start of it, you're kind of just like, oh, I guess maybe they're just, we're having like some fights or something, like just random stuff. Like maybe he didn't put this toilet seat down or something. I don't know. But I never, and it never got to the point where I was like, I, I, I didn't think that they weren't going to make it out on the other side in the end, like in terms of their relationship. And so those stakes were low, and then the stakes were low for like the actual world ending stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It was just,
I'll say like I don't know how much weight this comment's gonna have for I think the this type of film, but I do feel like Gerard Butler was heavily miscasted in this role. Just for the fact that I I don't want to ruin. Did you see my letterbox review for this?
I don't think I did.
Okay, don't look at it yet because I'm gonna say it right now because I think this is a great example of how I feel his like performances in this movie. I This is my review for Greenland. I wanted the P.S. I love you, Gerard Butler, but got the gods of Egypt, Gerard Butler instead.
That's funny.
I, just for some reason, it feels like he's unnecessarily brawlically heroic throughout this film. Yet he does know nothing like ever heroic. He has that one scene where, by the way, I had no clue during that scene when he's in the back of the truck and they do that car crash fight. I had no clue that that guy that was being friendly with him in the truck died until like 50 minutes later.
You didn't, they cut to his body. Like,
Did they, bro? I couldn't didn't notice. I shit you not either. I don't know what it was. Like I said, I'll say this. That's part of my issue with watching dark scenes during the day too. is,
oh,
so, is sometimes they'll cut to scenes like that, like it's a pitch black scene and the glare comes in, so they might have cut it and I just didn't realize it was him. Um, but also like I don't know that the movie just has like those type of characters. They come in for a minute, They give you like a little bit of hope because you know what, not everyone's bad, and then bam, off to the next scene.
Yeah, that was another thing that I didn't enjoy about the movie very much is that it kind of feels like what's the word I'm looking for? Fuck, I can't think of it. I don't know. It kind of feels like things happen for the convenience of the plot. Like that dude is introduced, and he spouts off some exposition, and we're like, oh, he's kind of a cool guy, and then he dies immediately, and it just it never felt very natural in terms of its moving from one scene to the next. It just kind of felt like we were being thrown all the way around, and it also doesn't help that a lot of the stuff that because it's kind of split between two perspectives. It's the mom and the dad, and they're separated the entire time, and so everything is going on simultaneously, and it never really felt like they connected in any you know genuine way.
Yeah, I agree. It honestly, I just kind of feel like I was lackluster coming out of this, and I really wasn't excited for a sequel, knowing that one was coming, because I felt like it ended on already a pretty solid note. You know, like I didn't know it was gonna end like this. I thought it was just gonna end with them getting to the shelter and that was it, because I knew the sequel, so I didn't know if they like left it on like
Open
a
for a
clip,
sequel.
yeah, a little open.
They
But
didn't.
like this ending kind of feels definitive, and especially after watching like the trailer for. I'll also say this, for some reason I say Greenland mitigation, not migration, every time the trailer comes up, and I have no
Honestly,
clue
I
why.
I keep forgetting it even has a subtitle. I've just been referring to it as Greenland 2, but I guess the subtitle is Migration, which that's kind of dumb. I think they could have gotten away with just Greenland 2 like
Or Greenland. No, okay, I couldn't make that work. But I don't know.
I mean, that one looks like more of,
It looks
a
like more of
disaster
a
movie.
what is I don't know, bro. It looks like they're on like a Mars. I know it's Earth, but it looks like they're on Mars dealing with like fucking electric storms in the sky, fucking deadly viruses. I'm like, it feels like that M Night Shyamalan movie that he did with not Chris Rock.
Oh, After Earth.
After Earth, yeah.
Oh,
Will Smith.
I don't know.
That's it.
My thing is that going back to what we were saying earlier is yeah, the movie doesn't really leave itself open for a sequel. Like the movie ends on such a hopeful note, and then when you watch the trailer for the second one, it's just like, oh no, things are getting worse. Like, we're struggling to survive again, and like yeah, I don't know. It feels like the movie is trying to establish something different from what it kind of already was,
Well, I
and
already hate the way they established the threat of like the meteor, because the only way they could ever make it seem quote unquote intimidating was just keep saying the same line, saying it's bigger than the one that destroyed the earth with the dinosaurs.
oh
Like, I get it, guys. It's bigger. I get it. Like, it's going to destroy everybody. And I think the film runs into just telling too much and not showing at all. And I was saying this to
yeah.
you earlier, when every time it shows us something, it's literally just a piece of rock coming into the frame. And sometimes it's not even like in the moment of the scene, but like we're watching it via a screen of a digital projection hitting like this surface, or like a video replay, and like it never makes me feel like it's coming for them. And I don't know, I go again straight to 2012. The first thing they fucking do, they split open all of fucking LA, bro. Just gone. LA's just fucked, bro. And I think even though it was ridiculous, it sets up the consequences right away, because you don't see the consequences of anything like happen to our characters until like damn near the very end.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying with the like show don't tell thing, I think another thing that I was really missing from this movie is sort of the like build up to the actual disaster happening. and a lot of it we just get is through like them listening to the radio or watching the news. Like to me, I felt like it should have had a little more like subtle things going on that like the characters are noticing, um like and not to do with like the all the secretive like government shit, but like the actual like imminent disaster, like the or at least the first when that first meteor crashes into like, I don't know, Florida or something.
And it shows like the sky changing for the
Yeah, like
first
I feel
time.
like there should have been more lead up to that of like the main
Like have
characters
have
being
the
like,
atmosphere like being destroyed.
yeah, oh, that's a little weird. Like, I wonder what that's about, but not really like clock what it means until it's too late. Because then, for us as the audience who already know that it's going to happen, we're kind of watching and being like, oh, that's like something because I didn't feel any tension going in, and so by the time that the disaster actually happened, I kind of felt like it was a wasted opportunity. Um, and that's something that I think again 2012 does better. It's crazy how this video has become us being like, "Oh, 2012 does this a lot better."
Well, I didn't like mean it that way, but I just feel like there's a lot of like similarities in like the characters, the overall structure of the story that I don't know because it's just frustrating because all of this stuff they do show when it comes to the actual disaster feels like a bunch of contrived plot conveniences. Because for about like the first 2/3 of the film, the character either gets service when the script tells them not to, or then their TV fucking works and they have two news broadcasters still working their job for some reason to give the audience a description of what's coming in the next like 20 minutes for the scene, you know? So
Yeah.
it's really frustrating and confusing when I don't know how to feel about the stakes because the script always changes the stakes to fit whatever the narrative needs in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I will say though, I want to change like the topic a little bit and ask you. We didn't like fully talk too much about this, but like, what are some of your favorite disaster films?
Shit. That's funny. I just looked at the Wikipedia for this movie, and it was like, "Oh, Greenland is a 2020 American apocalyptic survival disaster thriller film." That's a lot. That's a mouthful. I don't know. I need to look up a list of like. I mean, we kind of talked about Dante's Peak a little bit. I have. I told you I.
Okay, I'll give you a good one that I think I don't think too many people know about. But have you ever heard of a movie from 2006? It's called Poseidon.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I don't really know
It's
the
a
plot.
really great wave, like ocean wave film where a wave flips over an entire cruise ship and you literally follow like a crew of people climb from like the top of the ship to the bottom
Mm.
upwards as the ship is drowning or like sinking, I should say. And so it's got oh my god, you know the lead guy in it too. It's got a lot of people. It's got geez, I'm about to look up the cast now
From
because
2006.
yeah, 2006. It's got
I'm looking.
Kurt
And Kurt
Russell,
Russell, Emmy Rossum, Richard Dreyfuss, Josh Lucas,
Josh
Fergie.
Lucas.
Fergie is in
Yeah,
this movie.
Fergie's in it. I forgot, bro.
Okay. Is it? Is
It's
this
like,
isn't this a remake of a movie or
it might
something?
be. It might be from a
Um,
film in the 80s, I
it is
think.
the third film adaptation of Paul Gallico's 1969 novel, The Poseidon Adventure, and a loose remake of the 1972 film.
Yeah, I think like that's like not a traditional disaster film that I think is really good.
Mm.
Deep Impact, like we were talking about
I've never
before.
seen that one. So I've seen some of the Roland Emmerich ones. Obviously, we talked a lot about the 2012. I've seen The Day After Tomorrow. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. It is a 2014 movie called Into the Storm.
It's funny you said that because so what I did is I asked ChatGPT. I'm like, bro, tell me all the disaster films, and that's the next one I was going to mention because I saw that in 2014. I don't think it's a good film, by the way,
I don't.
but
I
it's
remember.
interesting.
I remember liking it when I saw it, but I have only seen it the once, and I think I was in middle school back then. So, my taste has changed. Oh, I don't know if you've seen this movie either. There's a Netflix movie called How It Ends with Theo James and Forrest Whitaker.
How
Um,
it ends? Let me
yes,
see.
it is not a good movie. I mean, it's
Oh, I have heard
decent.
of this.
It's decent for most of the movie until like the very end, where like some really dumb shit happens. And I remember leaving the end of that movie just being like, that was not very good. Like the ending actively hurts the rest of the movie, and it really upset me when I was watching it. Um, does Knowing count as a disaster movie? That Nicolas Cage end of the world movie?
Yeah, dude. Oh my god. I can't tell you how like nerve wracking that in 2012 made me in like the early 20s, 2000s, 2010s. Like, dude, they both made me paranoid for a few years in terms of like the world ending.
2012 and
And
Knowing. Yeah,
Knowing, yeah. I saw
yeah,
Knowing in
yeah. No,
theaters,
yeah.
bro, and like Knowing is way more of an I don't know how much of a more outrageous idea than it is 2012, but I don't know like I don't want to say this like me and you were that much like difference in age, but do you remember a lot of the hysteria around 2012 and like the end of the world in December of that
Yeah,
year?
I do. You're talking about the whole Mayan calendar
Yeah, the
thing.
Mayan calendar
Yeah,
thing, bro.
I.
In middle school, we all thought we were fucking dying, bro. I woke up that day. I was sitting on the train in Queens, dude. It was raining, and I'm like, "Damn, bro!" Like, I was just waiting for a
Is
wave
there
to
gonna
come
be
hit
another
me.
flood?
Yeah, dude. I was literally just waiting for some like fucking day after tomorrow tsunami to come in and hit me, bro. It was crazy.
Yeah, I'm when you're a kid, like I talked about this a little bit when I with you off podcast when we were talking about Dante's Peak, because that's the scene where the grandma dies really upset me when I was watching it. Um, and I was like 6 or 7. Like movies like these are difficult because like when you're a kid, you kind of don't really know the difference between some of this stuff and like reality. And a lot of these disaster ones are somewhat based in science, but as a kid, you can't really, you know, take that with a grain of salt. It's just like, oh, this is something that can actually happen.
Yeah.
Um, and so you kind of do get a little paranoid after you watch things like that. You're just like, oh my god, what if this did happen? Like, what would we do? We'd be fucked.
Well, the
And I
thing
mean,
is
it's an
too.
inherent part of these kind of movies where you're getting a unique perspective on a specific person or group of characters interacting with that kind of scenario. So you kind of inherently are just like, what would I do in that situation?
I guess to like bring this back around too, I think this is a good spot. Is I hate to bring this back to 2012 as well too, but because I think 2012 and like Greenland just their disasters are built in inherent fears to like modern day society, I think,
Oh
with
yeah.
just like an asteroid coming out of the sky or San Andreas just a crack going through it and just like splitting open with the tidal wave coming in. Like I think 2012 does a better job at setting up our own fears for our own world by using those in much better ways than I think just using a comet from the sky. Even Deep Impact, I think, does a better job.
I think
And you never,
Armageddon does.
well, Armageddon, you at least go to the fucking
Actual
like
asteroid.
asteroid, you know.
Mhm.
But that's what's like kind of frustrating about it to me is because I feel like I was expecting like a true disaster film, but I
Mm,
got more of a boring character piece.
mm. Yeah. No, yeah. I've always kind of considered this movie to be a disaster movie, but I don't know if I don't know if this counts for you. Um, uh, the I mean, it feels like it's written and it's shot or directed in a way that is more akin to a disaster movie than anything else. But I remember always thinking of the 2014 Godzilla movie as a disaster movie. Like I know that it's like a kaiju monster movie as well, but like if you look at it in comparison to the ones that came
I mean, monster
afterwards,
films are inherently like I think disaster films. Like
I
I
mean,
think they're categorized as
I think
disaster
I think in
films.
terms of like the 2014 Godzilla one, it like it focuses a lot more on like the human characters dealing with like the aftermath of like these giant creatures terrorizing the cities and everything. So that for me, that like I wouldn't classify the other ones as disaster movies because they're more like your typical like sci-fi blockbuster
Well,
action.
I was about to say, I think that's what made that the Gareth Edwards Godzilla work so well. Is I feel like it kind of went back to what made the original, like the original Japanese one, so popular. Um,
Yeah.
it's the fact that it's built back into the like the distrust of government and nuclear warfare, and how we create our own enemies through our own testing, our own damage. And I that's what I like about it is we created the own disaster ourselves. It wasn't this mystical force. I mean, in terms of the grand spectrum of things, yeah, like dropping a nuke in the ocean isn't gonna create a giant fucking lizard monster like that. But like in terms of like the grounded world and reality, it fits in a lot better than what like Godzilla 2000, NECA Godzilla,
Yeah.
Godzilla versus
Just
Ghidorah,
by a
like all
long
those other
way,
ones are. Yeah, where it's just like two like Godzilla versus. It's just like a brawling
Yeah.
type movie.
No, yeah, yeah. And also similarly like Godzilla minus one. Shin actually that this brings up a good point. Shin Godzilla, I know you haven't seen it yet. You need to watch that one. That I would consider a disaster movie. And that one specifically too, because I don't remember if I mentioned this when we did our episode on the Godzilla movies, because they re-released Shin Godzilla in 4K. But that Shin Godzilla was primarily um influenced by two interconnected disasters that happened in Japan. I don't remember what they were called, but there was a nuclear facility that um like disaster that happened. Hold on, let me just look it up. Hold on. Cuz I feel like I'm not doing justice in explaining what actually happened. Shin Godzilla draws major inspiration from Japan's 2011 I'm not going to say this name right, so I'm not even going to try. There was a 2011 earthquake and tsunami, and the subsequent Fukushima nuclear disaster, or Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster. So that was like the real life inspiration that led into that movie, and like its development and the way that it was written and shot. And also, I think Shin Godzilla also does a better job because a lot of that movie is about like what the real world government response from not just Japan but also internationally it would be to this kind of like um yeah disaster happening. And I think that movie also does a better job at like detailing sort of how a government would react and respond and everything and like all with all the political intricacies because it is kind of like a satire and a critique, let's say, on how Japan handled those uh, disasters that inspired the movie.
I think that's why I do have this inherent disappointment with Greenland is I feel like it just doesn't take any strides or doesn't try to do anything new, interesting, unique. Like it just plays it the safest possible way, and it's more confusing to me. I don't know why. I think I'm more frustrated with
I mean,
them
it's
playing it safe.
pretty much it's just like your generic disaster film. It's just like, oh, these things happen in a disaster movie, so they also kind of need to happen here. But at the same time, it's also again taking itself a little too seriously. Um, yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I can compare it to because I know we were talking about it really recently was I Jurassic World Rebirth is kind of like it falls under the same status for me of like it's so generic that it kind of becomes predictable and then you kind of stop enjoying it halfway through because it's just introducing things as kind of the narrative needs or the and not really setting them up in any natural or earned way.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. But I guess we'll get to some final wrap ups. Leo, do you have your stuff open? Do you want me to go first?
I mean, I didn't write a review or anything, so I can just tell you what my rating was.
All right, go ahead, boss.
So I gave it a 3, which might seem a little generous given how much we spent the this video dogging on it. But I mean, there wasn't anything like so bad in it that I was like, oh, this is a horrible movie. Like there were like, as it was the first half was going, I was kind of interested in where it was going, but towards the last half, I kind of just was like, this is whatever. So it wasn't a horrible watch, but I wouldn't say it was anything that I'm like dying to go back to. I'm glad that I didn't end up having to rent this because I didn't think it was going to be on anything, but luckily it was on HBO. So
Yeah, no. If I had to rent this, I would have been super disappointed.
no, yeah, yeah,
uh, but I gave it a 2 out of 5. I gave you my review. It's just kind of a bland, lackluster disaster film, if one would consider this that. Um, Honestly, I think anyone would have had more charisma than Gerard Butler, and just probably could have made the film way just far more interesting. Uh, he's just hit or miss for me. I either really like him in the film or he's just kind of like blah to me, and I
mm,
feel like this is one of those roles.
yeah.
He There's just something about him that I just don't care if he succeeds in this film. I just really don't. And that's really unfortunate. But
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said, bland is probably the best word to describe everything about this movie. And I think it's very telling that both Chris Evans and the original director dropped out of the movie because I don't,
dude,
I don't,
Chris
I don't
Evans would
know.
have killed in this.
Honestly, I am kind of curious to see how he would do in like a disaster flick.
He would kill in a disaster film,
I
bro.
think I would
The
rather
guy's
see him
got the
in.
charisma.
I
Oh,
this is gonna sound bad, but I think I would give up him being in Avengers Doomsday to see him in like this
dude, I think anyone would agree with you. To be honest, I don't think that's like too much of an outrageous statement.
movie. I don't know.
All right,
Anyways,
Leo, what are we watching next week?
yes. Next week we are. This is interesting. Next week we are going to talk about a movie that you've been wanting me to watch and get my thoughts on. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is coming out, so I'm going to watch 28 years later, the first one for the first time. We did an episode on the first two films in the series, 28 Days Later and 28. Sorry, days. Jesus, 28. Wait, no, that's correct, right?
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
days and
Okay,
weeks.
sorry. Yeah, it's we talked about 28 days later and 28 weeks later in preparation for this movie, but I never ended up seeing it because Ryan told me some things and I heard some other things.
I'm probably
And
gonna get death threats for my opinions. I'll be honest.
I mean, I heard mixed things about this. The
People
the
are gonna
new
want to
one
stake me.
the new one I've been hearing better things about, so I don't know.
I don't know, bro. It's Nia DaCosta, so we'll see.
Yeah.
That's also
Anyways,
another place I'll get staked is for my thoughts on Nia
I
DaCosta.
remember you
So
telling me that, yeah. Anyways, so that's what we're doing next week. Yeah. So let us know down below what you thought about Greenland if you actually saw it. I don't know too many people who have or even heard of it. But yeah, let us know, and we'll see you next time.
peace.